Why is it that in a world full of unlimited choices, instant gratification, and endless distractions, so many of us still feel out of control, trapped by our own impulses? It's almost ironic. The very things we think will make life easier often leave us feeling restless, chaotic, and even powerless. But what if the key to true freedom wasn't found in chasing every desire, but in mastering the ability to say no? This is exactly what the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus discovered nearly 2,000 years ago. Born a slave and rising to become a revered teacher of wisdom, Epictetus taught that self-control isn't just about resisting temptation, it's the foundation for living a life of peace and purpose. In this video, we'll explore his timeless lessons on self-discipline and show how they can help you reclaim control in a world that seems designed to overwhelm it. Some things are up to us and some things are not. With this simple yet profound statement, Epictetus laid the groundwork for one of the most transformative ideas in Stoic philosophy. Think about it. How often do we lose sleep over things that are completely outside our control? We worry about what others think of us, agonize over how events will unfold, or stress endlessly about outcomes we can't influence. According to Epictetus, this is one of the key reasons we feel frustrated and powerless. We've failed to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. So, what exactly is within our control? Epictetus teaches that our thoughts, choices, and actions are entirely ours to command. They are the domain where we hold absolute power. On the other hand, things like the opinions of others, the weather, or even the ultimate results of our efforts, those lie beyond our control. They are external, and no amount of worry or willpower can entirely alter them. This understanding is liberating because it grounds us. It reminds us to stop wasting energy on things we simply cannot change and instead focus on what we can, a shift that brings clarity and a deep sense of empowerment. To see how this applies in today's world, let's consider something most of us experience daily: interactions on social media. Imagine you post something you're proud of, a photo, an opinion, or a milestone, and then, like clockwork, comes a negative comment. It stings, right? You might even feel compelled to defend yourself or dwell on why someone would say such a thing. But here's the truth: you cannot control other people's reactions. Their opinions, good or bad, are external to you. What you can control is how you respond. Will you let it ruin your day, or will you remind yourself that their comment says more about them than it does about you? This distinction is the essence of self-control in action. By focusing only on your own thoughts and actions, choosing not to engage or letting it go, you conserve your energy for things that truly matter. Here's another example. Picture yourself stuck in traffic. The frustration bubbles up, and you find yourself angrily honking or muttering under your breath. But is this traffic in your control? No. What's in your control is your perspective. You could choose to fume for the next half hour, or you could use that time to listen to an audiobook, reflect, or simply practice patience. The situation doesn't change, but your experience of it absolutely can. When you start to make this distinction between what is up to you and what isn't, you begin to notice something remarkable. Most of the stress and anxiety we feel comes from trying to control what isn't ours to command. Letting go of that burden doesn't mean apathy. It means redirecting your energy toward what truly matters: your own actions, choices, and mindset. Just as a gardener focuses on tending their own plants rather than worrying about the weather, you too can focus on what's within your power and let the rest unfold as it will. Epictetus's teaching is as relevant now as it was in his time, perhaps even more so. In a world filled with countless distractions and pressures, this principle acts as an anchor. The next time you feel overwhelmed, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, act on it with intention. This simple practice can transform the way you engage with the world and with yourself. What does it mean to be truly free? Is it the ability to do whatever you want whenever you want? Or is freedom something deeper, something more internal? Epictetus believed that true freedom doesn't come from external circumstances, it comes from within. He famously said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, the person who is ruled by their desires and emotions is no better than a slave, constantly pulled in every direction by the whims of temporary pleasures or fleeting fears. True freedom, according to Epictetus, is the ability to master yourself, your choices, your impulses, and your reactions to the world around you. Think about it. Are you truly free if you can't say no to that extra slice of cake, binge watching one more episode, or spending money you don't have just because something caught your eye? Modern life offers us an endless parade of temptations, promises of quick satisfaction that are just a click or swipe away. We often confuse indulging in these impulses with freedom, but in reality, giving in to every whim is the opposite of freedom. It's surrendering your power to things outside yourself. Epictetus believed that freedom is not about chasing gratification, but about rising above it. Consider the example of consumerism. We live in a culture that constantly urges us to buy more, upgrade, and chase trends. Advertisements tell us we'll be happier if we have the newest gadget, the latest fashion, or the most luxurious experiences. But how often does this constant chasing really bring lasting peace or fulfillment? Instead, it often leaves us feeling trapped by debt, clutter, or the need to keep up appearances. By mastering the desire to have more, by stepping back and asking, "Do I truly need this?" we reclaim our autonomy. We become the ones in control, not the things that tempt us. The same concept applies to our emotions. Have you ever felt controlled by anger, jealousy, or fear? Maybe someone cut you off in traffic, and you spend the next 10 minutes fuming, replaying the incident over and over in your mind. Or perhaps you see someone achieving something you've always wanted, and instead of feeling inspired, you're consumed by envy. In these moments, your emotions are running the show, not you. Epictetus teaches that freedom comes from mastering these emotions, not suppressing them, but understanding them and choosing not to let them dictate your actions. Instead of reacting impulsively to something that angers you, you can pause, reflect, and respond with calm and composure. That pause, that ability to choose your response is where self-mastery lies. It's also where freedom begins. Now, let's bring it back to something we all face: instant gratification. Whether it's scrolling endlessly on social media, reaching for junk food, or procrastinating on something important, the pull of instant gratification can feel overwhelming. But here's the thing: every time you resist that pull, every time you say no to what feels good in the moment for the sake of what's better in the long term, you strengthen your self-control. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes, and with that strength comes freedom. You're no longer at the mercy of fleeting urges or external temptations. You're in control. Epictetus's message is clear. Freedom is not about having endless options to indulge in. It's about having the power to choose wisely. By mastering your desires and emotions, you free yourself from the chaos of external influences and find something far more valuable: inner peace. So, the next time you're faced with a choice, ask yourself, am I acting out of impulse or intention? Am I in control, or is something else controlling me? True freedom starts with that question, and with the courage to answer it honestly. Epictetus understood that self-control doesn't just appear overnight. It's a skill, one that must be built and strengthened through discipline. For him, discipline was the foundation of self-mastery, the daily practice of aligning your actions with your values and goals, even when it's hard or uncomfortable. Without discipline, he believed, we're like a ship without a rudder, adrift, easily swayed by every passing temptation or storm of emotion. But with discipline, we develop the internal strength to stay steady, to act with purpose instead of being ruled by impulse. Epictetus himself was no stranger to rigorous discipline. Born into slavery, he endured incredible hardship, including a physical disability that caused him chronic pain. Yet instead of succumbing to despair or self-pity, he practiced what he preached. He trained his mind and body to endure discomfort, to remain focused on what truly mattered. There's a story about how he once calmly endured having his leg twisted brutally by his master, warning the man that it would eventually break. And when it did, Epictetus didn't lash out or fall into rage. He simply stated, "Did I not tell you that it would break?" This story isn't about glorifying suffering, but about demonstrating the level of self-discipline Epictetus cultivated. He refused to let external events, even ones as painful as that, control his inner state. Discipline, as Epictetus taught, is not about punishment or deprivation. It's about training yourself to prioritize what's meaningful over what's easy or immediately gratifying. Take something as simple as sticking to a fitness routine. At first, waking up early to exercise or choosing a healthy meal over fast food might feel like a chore. But over time, that practice strengthens your ability to resist the temptation of staying in bed or indulging in unhealthy habits. Each disciplined choice you make reinforces your capacity for self-control, and soon it feels less like sacrifice and more like freedom. The freedom to live in alignment with your goals and values. The same principle applies to managing your finances. Imagine you're trying to save for something important, like a long-awaited trip or starting your own business. Discipline in this context means resisting the urge to spend on things you don't need. At first, it might feel restrictive, like you're constantly saying no to yourself. But with time, you'll see the rewards of that effort: a growing savings account and the satisfaction of working towards something that truly matters to you. Each time you choose to stick to your budget, you're not just saving money, you're building the muscle of self-restraint, proving to yourself that you're in control of your choices. Discipline also strengthens your ability to face challenges head-on. Life will inevitably throw obstacles in your path: unexpected setbacks, difficult decisions, or moments of doubt. When you've built the habit of discipline, you've already trained yourself to do what needs to be done, even when it's uncomfortable. You carry with you the confidence that you can endure, adapt, and overcome, because you've proven it to yourself in countless small, everyday moments. So, where could you use more discipline in your life? Maybe it's committing to regular exercise, sticking to a budget, or finally setting boundaries with your time. Maybe it's as simple as turning off your phone an hour before bed, or as challenging as breaking an unhealthy habit. Wherever it is, reflect on how cultivating discipline in that area could lead to greater self-control and ultimately a more fulfilled and purposeful life. Remember, each small act of discipline strengthens the foundation of your self-mastery, bringing you one step closer to the freedom Epictetus spoke of: the freedom to truly live on your own terms. Have you ever lost your temper in the heat of the moment, only to regret it later? Maybe it was during an argument with a loved one, or when a coworker upset you, and your words or actions spiraled out before you could stop them. In the aftermath, you might have thought to yourself, "Why did I let that get to me?" This is a universal experience, and it's one that Epictetus addressed with extraordinary insight. He taught that it's not the events themselves that cause us distress, but how we interpret and react to them. As he put it, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Take a moment to consider what this means. The external event, whether it's someone insulting you, a missed opportunity, or even a personal failure, is beyond your control. What asterisk is asterisk within your control is your response, And here is where Epictetus believed rational thinking plays a crucial role. Emotions, while natural and deeply human, can often overwhelm us if we let them take the driver's seat. They can cloud judgment, escalate conflicts, and lead to decisions that we later regret. But Epictetus doesn't ask us to suppress or ignore our emotions. Instead, he invites us to manage them with the power of logic and reason. Imagine, for example, someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate emotional reaction might be anger or frustration. You're tempted to yell, honk, or stew over the incident for the rest of the drive. But if you pause for a moment and engage your rational mind, what do you actually accomplish by reacting this way? Does your anger affect the other driver? Does it change what happened, or is it only eating away at your peace of mind? By thinking rationally, you can choose a different response. Maybe you remind yourself that the other driver's actions are about them, not you, and let it go. This small act of rational reflection instantly diffuses the negative emotions, allowing you to move forward without carrying unnecessary stress. Epictetus also believed that emotions often stem from misunderstandings or distorted thinking. For instance, when someone criticizes you, it's easy to feel hurt or defensive. But by pausing and questioning the emotion rationally, you might realize that their criticism isn't necessarily a reflection of your worth. Perhaps it's their own frustration speaking, or maybe there's even a grain of truth in their feedback that you can use to grow. When you approach criticism with logic instead of reactive emotion, you regain control over the situation and yourself. Modern practices like mindfulness align closely with what Epictetus taught. Mindfulness encourages us to observe our emotions without getting swept away by them, to create a gap between stimulus and response. In this gap, we have the opportunity to choose how we react. For example, instead of instantly lashing out when a friend forgets your birthday, mindfulness allows you to recognize the disappointment, question its source, and respond thoughtfully. Maybe you realize their forgetfulness doesn't diminish your relationship, and instead of reacting emotionally, you choose to communicate your feelings calmly. This approach mirrors the Stoic principle of using rationality to guide your actions. Epictetus's teachings remind us that emotions are not the enemy, they're part of being human. But emotions shouldn't control us. Through rational thinking, we gain the ability to step back, assess situations clearly, and decide how to respond in a way that aligns with our values. The next time you feel overwhelmed by anger, fear, or jealousy, try to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is my reaction helping or hurting me? What is the most logical and constructive way to move forward? By practicing this, you're not ignoring your emotions, you're mastering them. And in that mastery lies true freedom, the freedom to remain grounded no matter what life throws your way. Disappointment is something we all experience. Maybe you didn't get the promotion you worked so hard for, or perhaps a long-anticipated event was cancelled at the last moment. In those moments, it's natural to feel frustrated, even defeated. But if you've ever found yourself stuck in that loop of "why did this happen to me?" or "it's not fair," you'll know how exhausting that mindset can be. Epictetus believed that much of our suffering doesn't come from the events themselves, but from our resistance to them. He taught that when we fight against reality, we create inner turmoil. But when we accept what happens as part of the natural order, we free ourselves from unnecessary pain. Epictetus once said, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but rather wish for events to happen as they do, and you will have peace." At its core, this is a call to align ourselves with the flow of life instead of trying to bend the world to fit our desires. Life, after all, is full of things we cannot control, whether it's other people's actions, the timing of opportunities, or the inevitable ups and downs of existence. By rejecting reality or wishing things were different, we only create resistance within ourselves, a tension that breeds frustration and suffering. But when we embrace the wisdom of acceptance, we regain a sense of peace and control over our inner state. Let's take a relatable example: missing out on a job you were excited about. You might initially feel disappointed and replay the scenario in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. But Epictetus would remind you that the outcome, whether or not you were hired, was never fully within your control. Factors like the employer's preferences, the competition, or even timing are external to you. What is within your control, however, is how you choose to respond to this setback. You could let the disappointment consume you, or you could accept it as part of life's natural rhythm, perhaps even an opportunity to learn or to pursue something better suited to your strength. By letting go of the what-ifs and embracing what is, you reclaim your mental clarity and your power to move forward. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity or giving up. It's not about resigning yourself to a life of inaction or indifference. Instead, it's about recognizing the limits of your control and focusing your energy where it actually matters. Consider something as simple as a rainy day. You can't stop the rain, but you can choose how to respond. Do you spend the day complaining about the weather, or do you adapt by bringing an umbrella and going about your plans? The rain is neutral. Your perspective is what shapes your experience of it. Epictetus taught that everything that happens is part of the natural order, a greater plan that may not always be clear to us in the moment. By trusting in this flow and embracing events as they unfold, we cultivate resilience and inner calm. Let's return to the missed job opportunity. Perhaps the rejection feels crushing now, but in time you might look back and see how it led you to a better path, a role that truly aligns with your passion, or an experience that helped you grow in ways you couldn't have foreseen. Aligning with the natural order is not about predicting the future, but about trusting that life has its own rhythm, one that we can either resist or work with. So the next time life throws you a curveball, pause and remind yourself, is this something I can control, or is it something I must accept? If it's the latter, let go of resistance. Accept it fully, not as a defeat, but as part of the journey. In doing so, you'll find the peace and freedom Epictetus spoke of, a freedom that comes not from changing the world around you, but from transforming the way you experience it. Why are we so often controlled by what we own or desire? Think about it. How often do we tie our happiness, our security, or even our sense of self-worth to things outside of us, our possessions, relationships, achievements, or social status? Epictetus warned that this attachment to external things makes us incredibly vulnerable. Why? Because the things we cling to are, by their very nature, beyond our full control. And when our sense of peace depends on something we can't control, we're setting ourselves up for frustration, anxiety, and disappointment. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes from detachment, letting go of the need to cling to things outside ourselves. Whether it's material possessions, the approval of others, or even the things we desire most in life, this attachment enslaves us. When we make something external the source of our happiness, we give away our power. If we lose it, we suffer. If we fear losing it, we're trapped in constant worry. But by practicing detachment, we reclaim our inner peace and build a life that's unshakable, no matter what happens around us. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine you've just bought a brand new phone that you've been saving for and looking forward to for months. It's sleek and exciting, and you feel a sense of pride every time you use it. But then, one day, it slips from your hand and shatters. That sinking feeling of loss takes over. Why does it hurt so much? According to Epictetus, it's because you allowed yourself to become emotionally invested in something fragile, something that was always outside your control. The phone was never more than a temporary object, vulnerable to damage, theft, or obsolescence. Your attachment to it is what intensifies the pain of losing it. Now imagine if you had appreciated the phone while you had it but understood that it was never truly yours in the permanent sense. Instead of devastation, you'd feel acceptance, able to move on, knowing your happiness doesn't depend on it. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about things or that you should renounce all possessions and live with nothing. Instead, it's about shifting your mindset. It's about appreciating what you have without becoming dependent on it. It's about enjoying relationships and success while recognizing that they are not the ultimate source of your happiness or worth. Epictetus often advised viewing the things you love as gifts on loan from the universe, temporary, fragile, and not truly yours to keep. This perspective allows you to value them deeply without clinging to them. So, how do we begin practicing detachment in our daily lives? Start by reassessing your relationship with material possessions. Ask yourself, do the things I own actually add value to my life, or am I just holding onto them out of habit or fear of loss? Try decluttering your space not just for the sake of minimalism, but to practice letting go. Notice how it feels to release attachments to objects you don't truly need or value. Over time, this habit can expand beyond possessions to include emotional dependencies or unrealistic expectations of others. Another way to practice detachment is to reflect regularly on impermanence. Take a moment to remind yourself that nothing in life is guaranteed, not your success, your belongings, or even your relationships. While this can sound unsettling at first, it's actually a freeing realization. By accepting impermanence, you reduce the fear of loss because you've already made peace with its possibility. Instead of clinging tightly to what's outside of you, you begin to cultivate an inner resilience that no external loss can shake. Finally, shift your focus inward. Detachment isn't about depriving yourself of joy, but about finding joy within yourself rather than in external things. Invest in the qualities that no one can take away from you: your character, your values, and your ability to choose your response to life. As Epictetus taught, these are the things you truly own, the aspects of yourself that are always within your control. By practicing detachment, you liberate yourself from the emotional roller coaster of wanting, fearing, and clinging. You become freer, lighter, and more grounded. Life doesn't stop changing, and losses will still come, but they no longer have the power to shatter your peace. And in that freedom, you'll find the strength to live more fully, with openness and gratitude for whatever the present moment offers. At the heart of Epictetus's teachings lies a profound and empowering truth. We may not control the events of life, but we always control how we respond to them. He famously said, "Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them." This simple yet transformative idea reminds us that our greatest power, the one no external force can ever take away, is the power of choice. While we can't stop challenges, hardships, or even small daily annoyances from occurring, we can choose how we interpret and respond to them. And in that choice lies the foundation of self-control and inner peace. Think about a time when something didn't go your way: a rejection, a mistake, or even an unexpected inconvenience like missing a bus. The situation itself, though unpleasant, isn't what causes the pain we feel. The real source of our distress is how we perceive the event and the meaning we assign to it. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you might immediately think, "That person has no respect for me," and react with anger. But is this the only way to interpret the situation? What if you chose to see it differently? What if you told yourself, "Maybe they're rushing to an emergency," or "This has nothing to do with me, it's just someone in a hurry"? By reframing the event, you change your emotional response. The situation itself hasn't changed, but your view of it has. And more often than not, that change in perspective is all it takes to shift from stress to calm, from frustration to understanding. This ability to choose your response is especially powerful when applied to larger challenges in life. Imagine losing a job, a situation that most of us would undeniably view as negative. The initial reaction might be fear or even despair, but Epictetus would encourage us to step back and examine the situation with reason. He might ask us to consider, what opportunities does this loss create? What lessons can I learn from this experience? How can I use this as a turning point to grow stronger or pursue something more aligned with my values? By deliberately reframing the experience, you go from being a victim of circumstance to actively shaping how you move forward. This practice of choosing a constructive response doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's natural to feel disappointment or frustration in difficult moments, but self-control begins when you recognize those feelings, acknowledge them, and then decide how to act in spite of them. It's the difference between saying, "This setback defines me," and "This setback challenges me and I'll rise to meet it." The latter choice is where your power lies. Epictetus's teachings align closely with what modern psychologists call cognitive reframing. This is the practice of interpreting situations in a way that helps you maintain perspective and focus on solutions. For instance, if you're facing criticism at work, your initial reaction might be defensiveness or hurt. But by choosing to reframe the situation, you could see the feedback as an opportunity to improve, even if it wasn't delivered kindly. This mental shift not only helps you learn and grow, but also prevents you from spiraling into negative emotions that could cloud your judgment or sabotage your performance. On a daily level, the power of choice can have a profound impact on how we handle life's smaller irritations. Think about being stuck in a long line at the grocery store. You could let impatience take over, grumbling about the wasted time. Or you could choose to use that moment as an opportunity to practice patience, reflect on your day, or even strike up a kind word with a stranger. These small choices, though seemingly insignificant, compound over time. The more you practice choosing constructive responses, the more self-control becomes second nature. Epictetus's wisdom reminds us that no matter what life throws our way, we always have the final say in how we respond. It's this power of choice that allows us to take control of our minds, even when we can't control the circumstances. So the next time you're faced with a difficult situation, pause, ask yourself, what meaning am I giving this event, and how can I choose a response that aligns with my values and leads me to growth? In making that choice, you're not only exercising self-control, you're reclaiming your freedom. How often do we train our minds as we do our bodies? Most of us understand the importance of physical exercise, whether it's going for a run, lifting weights, or practicing yoga. We know that consistent effort is what builds strength, endurance, and resilience. But when it comes to our minds, especially the practice of self-control, how often do we intentionally train? For Epictetus, self-control wasn't something you either had or didn't have. It was a skill, one that could only be developed through daily practice and preparation. Just as you wouldn't expect to run a marathon without months of training, Epictetus believed you couldn't hope to master your impulses or face life's challenges without consistent effort. So, what does training your mind for self-control look like in practice? One powerful tool Epictetus encouraged was regular introspection. He believed that every day should include a moment to reflect on your thoughts, actions, and progress. Think of it as a mental check-in, a way to evaluate how well you lived in alignment with your values that day. Did you act with patience when faced with difficulty, or did you give in to frustration? Did you stay true to your goals, or did distractions pull you off course? This habit of reflection builds self-awareness, which is the foundation of self-control. After all, you can't improve what you're not aware of. Journaling is an excellent way to begin this practice by taking a few minutes at the end of each day to jot down your successes, struggles, and lessons learned. You create space to process your emotions and recognize patterns in your behavior. Over time, this practice doesn't just help you see where you've fallen short, it also highlights where you've made progress, strengthening your confidence in your ability to grow. For example, you might realize that last week you struggled to avoid procrastination, but today you took deliberate steps toward staying focused. These small wins are proof that self-control is a skill you're actively building. Another way to train your self-control is through mental rehearsals. This involves imagining yourself in situations that test your discipline and visualizing how you want to respond. Athletes do this all the time. They picture themselves performing under pressure, succeeding in challenging moments. You can apply this same technique to everyday scenarios. Let's say you're trying to quit a bad habit, like scrolling on your phone before bed. Imagine the moment of temptation. Your phone is in your hand, and you feel the urge to check just one more thing. Now visualize yourself pausing, putting the phone down, and choosing to read a book or get more rest instead. This simple exercise trains your mind to respond intentionally, so that when the real moment arrives, it feels like second nature to make the better choice. Epictetus also emphasized the importance of small, daily challenges to toughen your mental discipline. These don't have to be grand gestures. They can be as simple as taking a cold shower, waiting a few minutes longer before eating when you're hungry, or choosing to walk instead of drive when it's less convenient. The point isn't the challenge itself. It's the act of saying no to immediate comfort in favor of building resilience. Over time, these small acts of discipline add up, strengthening your ability to face bigger challenges with greater ease. Think of them as the mental equivalent of doing push-ups. They might seem minor now, but they prepare you for the heavy lifting of life's unexpected trials. Epictetus believed that life tests us constantly, often when we least expect it. Whether it's dealing with a difficult person, facing a sudden setback, or resisting a strong temptation, these moments reveal the state of our self-control. And just like a soldier wouldn't enter battle without training, he taught that we should prepare ourselves each day through consistent practice. By journaling, reflecting, rehearsing, and taking on small challenges, you're not just building self-control, you're creating a foundation of character and resilience that will carry you through whatever life throws your way. So ask yourself, if life is bound to test your patience, discipline, or resolve, how are you preparing for those moments? By treating self-control as a skill to be trained daily, you're not only improving your ability to navigate challenges, but you're also taking charge of your growth as a person. Incrementally, day by day, you can strengthen the muscle of self-discipline and move closer to becoming the master of your own mind. Adversity is an inevitable part of life. Yet, the way we handle it can define the course of our personal growth and happiness. Epictetus, who began life as a slave and endured severe hardships, demonstrated through his teachings and his own example that self-control is the key to resilience. He believed that hardships don't have to break us. Instead, they can become opportunities for growth and transformation. He famously said, "Difficulties are things that show a person what they are." In other words, how you respond to challenges reveals your true character and determines whether you will emerge stronger or remain stagnant. Let's start with a moment from Epictetus's life. Despite being born into slavery and living under harsh conditions, Epictetus didn't allow his circumstances to define him. According to historical accounts, his master was cruel and abusive, once twisting Epictetus's leg to the point of breaking it. Instead of reacting with anger or despair, Epictetus calmly endured, reportedly saying, "If you continue, you will break it." And when it broke, his reaction was equally composed. "Did I not tell you it would happen?" This was not resignation or apathy, it was the embodiment of self-control and acceptance. Epictetus refused to let external circumstances, even ones as painful as these, dictate his inner state. Through years of discipline and reflection, he developed an unshakable resilience, ultimately gaining his freedom and dedicating his life to teaching others how to endure life's difficulties with grace and strength. What can we learn from this today? Life may not subject us to the physical hardships Epictetus endured, but adversity takes many forms. Whether it's losing a job, facing a financial crisis, navigating a difficult relationship, or battling self-doubt, these moments test our emotional resilience. Without self-control, it's easy to spiral into frustration, fear, or anger, letting the challenge dominate our thoughts and actions. But Epictetus's philosophy reminds us that adversity isn't inherently negative, it's our interpretation of it that defines its impact. When viewed through the lens of self-discipline, adversity becomes an opportunity to learn, grow, and strengthen our character. To bring this into a modern perspective, imagine someone facing a sudden job loss. The initial reaction might be panic or despair, but self-control offers a different path. By remaining calm and reflecting on the situation rationally, they might see this as a chance to reevaluate their career goals, learn new skills, or explore new opportunities they hadn't previously considered. It's not about ignoring the difficulty, it's about choosing to focus on what can be gained rather than what's been lost. This shift in perspective doesn't just help navigate the immediate challenge, it builds resilience for future obstacles. Another modern example can be found in athletes who suffer career-defining injuries. Take, for instance, a runner who is told they may never compete again. The natural response might be devastation, but those who channel their self-control often find ways to adapt and thrive. Some become coaches, start charities, or even shift their training toward a sport they can still pursue. These individuals embody the Stoic principle of using setbacks as a springboard for growth, transforming what could have been a permanent defeat into a new opportunity. Epictetus also taught that adversity, when approached with self-control, can prepare us for even greater challenges. He compared life's difficulties to the exercises of an athlete. As it is not fit for an athlete to complain of a hard contest, so neither is it for a person to complain of the condition of life in which they are placed. Just as athletes grow stronger by pushing through tough workouts, we grow stronger by facing life's obstacles head-on. Challenges, no matter how daunting, provide us with the chance to train our minds and fortify our inner strength. So how can we start cultivating this mindset? Begin by reframing the way you view struggles. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What can I learn from this?" Practice maintaining your calm in small, everyday challenges. A traffic jam, a disagreement with a coworker, or a missed deadline. Each time you choose to respond with patience and rationality, you're building the resilience needed for life's larger adversities. And when the big challenges come, remember Epictetus's example. You may not control the events unfolding around you, but you always control how you interpret them and how you choose to act. In the end, resilience isn't about avoiding adversity. It's about embracing it as part of the human experience and using it to grow stronger. Epictetus's life and teachings remind us that even in the face of unimaginable hardship, we can remain steady, find meaning, and emerge better than before. With self-control as your anchor, there's no storm you can't weather. Imagine you're in a heated meeting at work. Tensions are high, voices are rising, and frustrations are spilling over. Suddenly, one person, perhaps the manager or just a calm team member, speaks up in a steady, composed tone. They acknowledge the concerns in the room without adding to the chaos, propose a clear path forward, and somehow their calm approach diffuses the tension. The entire room seems to soften, taking a cue from that one person's restraint and thoughtfulness. This is the power of leading by example, something Epictetus deeply understood and advocated for. Epictetus taught that self-control is not just a tool for personal peace or resilience, it's also a way to inspire and guide others. When you embody patience, rationality, and discipline, you create an unspoken ripple effect. People around you begin to notice, and without a single word of instruction, your behavior shows them a better way to handle challenges. As Epictetus wisely noted, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. In other words, actions speak louder than words, and by living a life of restraint and wisdom, you set an example that can transform relationships, communities, and even the lives of strangers. Take, for instance, a parent. A parent who practices self-control not only benefits themselves but also establishes a powerful model for their child. Imagine a child spills a glass of juice on the couch. The natural reaction might be for the parent to yell or scold out of frustration. But instead, a parent who embodies self-control pauses, takes a breath, and responds calmly, "Let's clean this up together." In doing so, they demonstrate patience, rationality, and problem-solving in action. That simple moment teaches the child far more than a lecture ever could. It shows them how to remain steady in situations of stress and how to respond to life's inevitable mistakes with grace. Over time, this lesson becomes part of the child's own toolkit, helping them navigate their own challenges more effectively. This principle extends beyond the family into leadership roles in workplaces, schools, and communities. Think about great leaders throughout history who have inspired people not through fiery rhetoric or force, but through their example of calm conviction. Consider individuals like Mahatma Gandhi, whose refusal to meet violence with violence became a symbol of strength and self-discipline, or someone like Nelson Mandela, who, despite enduring decades of imprisonment, emerged with forgiveness in his heart, leading South Africa with wisdom and restraint. Their personal mastery of self-control didn't just serve them, it inspired entire nations to follow their lead, showing the world what courage tempered by wisdom looks like. But you don't need to be a world leader to apply this principle in your life. In your daily interactions, choosing restraint or responding calmly in moments of conflict can have a profound impact. Think of a workplace disagreement. If you respond defensively or emotionally, chances are the conflict escalates. But if you remain composed, listen actively, and respond with reason, it shifts the tone. You create space for resolution rather than escalation. Your actions may even encourage others to mirror that same thoughtful approach, fostering a healthier dynamic in the team. In community settings, this principle becomes even more vital. When we demonstrate self-control in public spaces, whether it's showing patience in a long line, handling misunderstandings with kindness instead of hostility, or even just staying calm in traffic, we model behavior that uplifts those around us. You might not realize it, but the person watching your composed reaction to a frustrating moment could be inspired to handle their own challenges differently. You're planting seeds for a more thoughtful and balanced community simply by the way you conduct yourself. In relationships of all kinds, embodying self-control establishes trust and respect. People are naturally drawn to those who exhibit balance and composure, particularly in difficult situations. When you're the person who remains steady during an argument, who listens without interrupting, or who chooses understanding over blame, you earn the respect of those around you. This kind of quiet leadership doesn't just resolve conflict, it strengthens bonds, showing people that you value their perspective, and that emotional discipline is possible even in challenging moments. Epictetus's advice to embody your philosophy reminds us that the greatest impact we can have often comes not from what we say, but from how we live. Practicing self-control doesn't just benefit you, it sets a standard for others to aspire to, creating a ripple effect of thoughtfulness, discipline, and peace. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation that tests your patience or composure, remember, your response doesn't just shape your experience, it has the power to inspire those around you. By leading with self-control, you're showing others and yourself what it means to rise above the chaos and live with intention. As we come to the end of this journey through the teachings of Epictetus, one thing becomes abundantly clear: self-control is the foundation of a life well lived. It's not about suppressing who we are or denying our emotions, but about learning to master ourselves, our actions, our reactions, and most importantly, our mindset. Epictetus taught us that we cannot always control what happens in life, but we can always control how we choose to respond. This simple yet profound shift in perspective allows us to reclaim our power, letting go of what's beyond our control and focusing instead on what is firmly within our grasp. We've explored how understanding the distinction between what we can and cannot control brings us clarity and peace. By focusing on our own thoughts, choices, and actions, we free ourselves from the burden of worrying about things that are ultimately outside our influence. We've also delved into the role of discipline, not as a form of restriction, but as the training ground for resilience and growth. Through small, consistent acts of restraint and intention, we strengthen our capacity to face challenges with grace and purpose. We've talked about the importance of reframing adversity, seeing hardships not as barriers but as opportunities to grow stronger. And finally, we've highlighted how self-control isn't just a personal benefit, it's a way to positively influence the world around you by leading through example, inspiring others to rise above their own challenges and meet life with calm and reason. The practical applications of these teachings are endless. Imagine what your life could look like if you practiced self-control in the small moments, choosing patience over anger when faced with a difficult person, valuing progress over perfection when pursuing a goal, or simply pausing to reflect before reacting to life's challenges. These small, intentional choices create a ripple effect, shaping not just your own life but influencing those around you as well. Every moment is an opportunity to practice, to grow, and to step closer to that inner freedom Epictetus spoke of. In the words of Epictetus, no great thing is created suddenly. Mastering self-control is no exception. It's a journey, one that requires patience, practice, and a willingness to confront the habits and impulses that no longer serve you. But with every step, you'll find yourself becoming more resilient, more composed, and more aligned with the person you truly want to be. So I'll leave you with this question: how can you implement these lessons in your own daily life? Whether it's setting aside a few moments for reflection, taking on a small challenge to strengthen your discipline, or simply pausing to choose your response the next time life tests your patience, what step will you take toward mastering self-control? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what resonates with you and how you plan to apply these insights. And if you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Here on this channel, we dive deeply into the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, offering practical tools to help you live with greater peace, purpose, and resilience. Thank you for watching, and remember, true freedom starts not in changing the world but in mastering yourself.